Welcome back to the Celtic Exchange Weekly, and what a week it's been. We've been doing this for around about 5 years, just short of 5 years. And question to you, Miff, is this as uneasy a relationship it's been in that time between the club and the fans?
Hello, Tino, James, Paddy and listeners. I think this is a wee bit different. When we started, it was just as we were winning the quadruple treble, but we knew things were bad, and we were trying to get in front of that at the time as a group of fans, albeit it was very difficult to do that because we weren't in the stadium. This is very much different because this seems to be entirely an issue of our own creation by our ineptitude, mainly at board level. So this feels like an us and them scenario. Us being the board, them being the fans. And I'm saying of the creation. Aye. I know I'm one of the fans. I'm not willing to say what I was going to say was. So they have created this because they hold us in a lot of contempt. And the statement that was released on Saturday night is absolute proof of that. If you ever needed any proof to know how the Celtic board feel about Celtic fans, it's away you go. Stay in your lane, leave the big boy stuff to us. You just haven't got a clue. Actually, it's maybe the other way around.
Yeah, it's all there and then some in the statement. We're going to get into it in a bit of detail just shortly. But Paddy, from the outside looking in, a lot of folks would say you didn't sign a striker and this is what happens, but it's a lot more than a transfer window gone wrong, isn't it?
Of course it's a lot more than that. You know, it's been building up for years. I think like this is the straw that's broke the camel's back, and that camel's been on a 15-year journey, and it's still getting nowhere. I think when you look at seasons gone past under Neil Lennon in first time round, Ronnie Dyler, back to Brendan Rodgers, Neil Lennon, Ange, they've all come up against the board. Every single manager's come up against the board. There's been negligence at every turn when we're coming to a point where the team needs to maybe start to be broken up a bit. Players need to move on. They've got different goals. There's different hunger for them at different leagues. That's part of football in this day and age. We're not acting quick enough, and the players that we're bringing in are not adequate enough, and we find ourselves in a position where we're holding far too many players in our squad. It's too bloated. We've not dealt with it quickly enough, and we just start almost in a sense panic selling. And I think that they can speak and say we've been able to get rid of a lot of our players off our books this summer. I think I seen the fact going around that 20 players brought in over the last 3 seasons, only 8 are remaining. That's a huge turnover. And some
only one that plays is Schmeichel.
I just find that baffling. What a huge waste of money. Have we seen it before? Aye. Mm-hmm. And this is the thing, they're not learning. They're hitting and hoping. And I think, sorry, I'm going on in this one. Stevie made a great point when you look at Jota.
Did he?
Aye, he did. Aye. He'll not be happy with that. He made a great point when you look at Jota. We're lucky that the money that's getting flung about in Saudi Arabia is as crazy as it is for us to get 25 million for Jota. Let's be honest here. We have lucked out in a good few times. Even Nicholas Kuhn getting 19 million for him. That's lucky. That is lucky. That's not.
I don't know that one. I think that one does fall in the plan. I think we were lucky with Riley because we didn't try and sign him. We tried to sign Riley McGree, you know.
Aye.
They've had a lot of luck. I don't know if I would count Kuhn in it.
I would say for me, just in terms of, you know, very hot and cold player, and basically a 6-7 month spell from last season dictated his value, in my opinion. I think we got lucky with that. But if a player doesn't want to play there, you should let them move on, and we struggle to do that as well.
Yeah, that's a big part of. If time allows, we'll get to Dags Maeda, but there's so much that's coming up before that. James, let me ask you. So at times, I suppose we do what we do on a Monday night, the 4 of us in here in the studio, and you could be accused at times of being in your own bubble, your own echo chamber, and maybe some other fans as an extension. But this is one thing that bizarrely has almost universally united Celtic fans. We'll all disagree on different things, who we should sign, what we should sing at games, this, that and the next thing. I think this has bizarrely brought the fan base together.
Well, bizarre is the word I'd use for my mindset at the moment. I'm bizarrely optimistic now.
What?
Because no action is not an option. There's 3 options I see it, right? Find a patsy, bag him.
He's been waiting to get these 3 options that I've been looking for.
Absolutely. Find a patsy, bag him, say it was him, make no other changes, tell us all to F off, right?
Mark Lawwell and these guys have been that previous patsy, so I don't even think that's got to fly anymore.
I'm not done yet.
All right, sorry.
Option 2, Desmond's toxic as well, and he's got to understand that any involvement of him is toxic to the fan base. Now, his son is meant to be a genuine fan. You could maybe get away if you took more of an operation, clear out the exec suite, put in a new CEO and management team and start to modernise the club. Could maybe get my head around that. Third option is somebody buys out Desmond, puts a CEO in, and we start to behave like a proper football team. But the first option is not an option. So that's why I'm feeling a bit optimistic. There's going to be change no matter what. I think what's really caught them by surprise is the unity among the fan base. Now, Celtic's a diverse group of opinions and, interests and whatever. We are solid on this, and they should know that. Everyone is together on this. You've seen what's going on. I thought Friday night, the snidey to the Sun of all papers, the snidey backchanneling stuff, right? It was really, really bad.
That was bad. I didn't think it could get worse.
Well, that's it. They thought they could get away with that, and that'll keep them off our backs. And see, it's Rodgers, it's no us. And they realised by first thing Saturday morning they'd get that wrong. So he starts writing, or gets some computer system to start writing. Always delete your Oxford commas, boys, if you're going to use ChatGPT. Oxford commas, that's your trick.
Jamesy boy's been waiting on you.
If you're going to do that, then they've gone in and ran the statement out. The thing is, it's the level of how out of touch they are. They put that statement out, right? And the two would be Michael Nixon and Chris McKay going, pint. That went all right. And we were at a sportsman's dinner Saturday night. They went, they've released a statement at 9 o'clock. I was like, you're joking. If you release a statement at 9 o'clock that says you are not confident in what you're putting out, and it's also just a total disrespect to the fan base.
Well, I would just like to say, and this is directly at the board, I'm going to go down the ballot. Right, when I say that, right down the ballot. Nothing should disrupt my Saturday night cans. That was my second can of Red Stripe, and I'm dealing with that. Pish. Enough.
Nothing.
Enough.
Paddy, you thought the straw that broke the camel's back was some of the transfer and activity. Turns out we found it there.
The cans.
Yeah, listen, a decent chunk of what we do tonight is going to be about the statement, all elements of it, and we'll pick out the kind of headlines, and I'll get your lads' thoughts on that. Just quickly to come back to you, James, how convinced are you that we will see change and that this won't be another situation where, we're all angry for a time and it just blows over and it's as you were?
This is the complete corporate mismanagement of all, right? Because see, if you get the absolute stroke of luck of international break, you say F all for that whole period and let that anger dissipate. What they've managed to do is not only maintain it, raise it. Right? So their chance of letting it all calm down is gone.
Aye.
The back-to-back of let's leak something to the Sun.
And it wasn't us, but it was us.
You know what? Oh, it's the rat again, being all ratty. I was like,
see your point.
I was the only guy who was like, I knew it. So they do that, right? So they do that, but then they back that up with, I know it, right? Whoa. There's some flames here. Just let's get the petrol. Here we go. We'll just launch that right on there. It's the back-to-back. They did that in 24 hours.
So,
24 hours. What's going on? What is going on?
And as James says there, the international break was a 2-week gift. That was calm down, lads. We can all just regroup. They'll be fine in a fortnight's time. I've got this can of petrol at the back, and I'm going to use it. And that was the analogy that Stephen McGowan gave. I think you lads have already now. Stephen McGowan done a brilliant piece in the Herald. Sometimes it's paywalled in the Herald, but I believe that piece is free.
There's ways around that.
And it's just a really accurate, doesn't hold back, hits the nail on the head type of article. It's worth checking out. Let me ask you a few questions in.
Speaking of which, may I big you up on your performance on Sky Sport? A lot of positive feedback on that.
Walking into the sportsman's dinner Saturday night, it's like Elvis, man.
Well, thank you very much.
Anyway, the statement that comes out 8:42 on a Saturday night, 2 cans in for match. It was following meetings on Friday with the Celtic Supporters Association, the affiliation of registered Celtic supporters clubs, and I think a separate meeting with the Association of Irish Celtic Supporters Clubs. And the question, I'll put it to you first, Miff. What do you think the overall objective, at least before press and send, was of releasing the statement at all? What was the main goal here? To calm folks down, to take the weight off us, to shift the blame? What was the big picture?
A combination of we know better, That's the sentiment I'm getting anyway. We know better than you, so shut up. So it's we know better, and also here's some badly spun half-truths to back up our standing. And I think it massively failed. And there also seems to be a lack of, would you call it, emotional intelligence to understand how these meetings have went.
Yeah.
Because they have then
Really bad.
they have then paraded in front of us an untruth. They
As
have
if they were united.
as if we've had a chat, everything's fine, troops.
Yeah.
And it's like, again,
We've had a wee vote.
again, but we're not really agreeing with you. So that disconnect, I would now call it a chasm between fans and board. And again, for the avoidance of doubt, because I can't imagine anyone at Celtic isn't listening to, I'm not saying that in a way to show any vanity, but I would imagine they'll be testing the temperature of fan groups by listening to different podcasts.
You're negligent if you're not.
And it does not need to be like this. What's needed now is action. So to go with James's point, I don't think any fans are wanting to add more fuel to this. We want it sorted.
Yeah.
By sorted, what we need is action. And it's only the board that can take the action, because if they don't take the action, the reflex action to that is the fans will take the action. My supporters bus today had a vote on whether or not the bus was going to run a bus to the Europa League games.
Wild.
Now, that's not necessarily to say it's telling everybody to boycott the Europa League. What it's saying is we as a bus are just got to say, no, we're not supporting this. If you want to go and go on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Now, our bus has been running for best part of 40 years. To think that off the back of winning the league title or a double, showing progress in Europe, that by the time the Europa League fixtures are out, we're having a vote on something like that, only tells you the damage that the board have done. It's as simple as that.
Have you had your vote?
It's ongoing.
Right, okay. So
The poll is up.
Okay, let us know how that goes. Paddy, as I said there to Miff, kind of two-sided question as such. What was the objective from Celtic's point of view, and did they achieve that objective?
They might have thought that they did. I think the objective was to, I think one of the big things is that they kind of put themselves in a position that they couldn't sit silent. They should have. When what you guys are suggesting, and you've got an international break there, but such was the calamity of our manager having to come out and saying Adam Ida's going nowhere until we get a replacement, him then going and no replacement in the door. Now listen, we don't know if Iheanacho was the target.
Big Ian?
He was still a member of on Seville's books at that time when Ida went. So wasn't he clear?
No, exactly. But we're still unaware of the ins and outs of the Dolberg deal, and we've heard about the domino effect and all of that. And listen, that can happen. But to have all of that happening on the last day is kind of what we've been screaming about for years.
Shouldn't have been the last day if they'd done their job.
Exactly.
He's a Celtic player.
They put themselves in a position where they had to come out. Now, whether you come out and you say, hands up, we've made a mistake, right, we've messed up here, or you come out or you attempt to come out and say, actually, here's what we were up against. We've heard it. It's a broken record. Yeah. We've heard it before. January's a tough window. Why are teams still going out and signing players? We're not in this area that we need to wait and see what the Premier League does. We're nowhere near the money of the Premier League. No. We are in a different market. And when you look at our competitors and teams that are around us right now, and I'm looking at Ajax is definitely one of them. Club Brugge is definitely one of them. Just do what Brugge do. Just watch, but watch how they're operating.
Yeah. Never mind that. Hearts, Hibs and Aberdeen.
Well, this is the thing.
What the hell?
You would be looking at Celtic and Rangers in summer, and surely even your man Bloom must be like, put a bit of money in, and we've got a challenge.
His 10-year project has been brought dramatically forward based on what we are doing at this moment in time. James, you could look at the transfer window as a whole, and you'd have a list as long as your arm of Celtic's mistakes, how we acted with Dolberg, how we acted with Adam Ida, how we messed about Yang, how we tried to lowball Jacob Broom at Go Ahead Eagles, how the Go Ahead Eagles CEO laughed at us, how the Swansea manager took the piss out of us, and so on and so forth. And in between all that, you're losing to Kairat Almaty over 2 legs. You're stumbling to a nothing each draw against one of the worst Rangers sides you'll ever see. Why is everything that Celtic touch right now turning it up?
It's an accumulation. Operationally, Celtic have been a mess for years and years, and we've got away with it. People not being quite at the level we need to progress in all departments, and I'm not doing that with anyone individually, but a multitude of departments of Celtic need to be upgraded in terms of the personnel, but that's not their fault. That's in terms of how Celtic operates in operation. There's no, let's try and get you to be the best, let's put some additional talent around. The amount of talent that Celtic have lost at the exec level over the last 5-10 years that I know of personally, people who've gone on to senior roles because they weren't going to progress their careers at Celtic. Any company that loses talent like that needs to look internally and say, we're doing something wrong here, but they didn't. The football stuff keeps working because Rangers are a shambles, so you keep getting away with it until you don't get away with it. And this summer, we didn't get away with it. Nothing to do with Rangers, but just in terms of our complete shambles in the transfer window.
Mess.
And then going out of the Champions League again. And eventually, my tipping point was the attempted, the stuff bringing in Mark Law. And it's no harm to Mark Law himself. He was probably sold up as well in terms of the brief he had to deliver. But that nepotism, I mean, the daft, we tried this before at Celtic, dynasties and nepotism, it doesn't work and it will not be supported by the fans. That was my tipping point, and now it's everyone's tipping point. So it's been in the wash for years, this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's hit the bricks because you've got a CEO that won't communicate, and if you don't communicate, you've got no brand profile with the fans where somebody would come in and bat for you and say, but he's all right. How would you know he's all right? He's never spoke to us. I know people that know him, and he's a well thought of guy, but the wider fan base doesn't know of him.
Yep.
So when he's making mistakes, he's not getting any backup. So I don't know who's advising him as well. And the CFO is sitting on a pile of money, which is bad for the business. So what kind of CFO are you if you're not agitating to get that money working?
Just one small detail on the money, which I thought was, again, quite insulting, that they explained away their lack of spending by the bank balance not correlating to
complete obfuscation, deliberate
nonsense.
Absolutely.
It's nothing to do with bank balance, and that's how idiotic they think we are.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. We hoi polloi calling
I didn't know that.
It's the bank balance has nothing to do with it. We know that it's income, and you've still got plenty of headroom.
Correct.
But don't dare insult our intelligence with that.
Yeah, I'll tell you what.
Who the hell do they think they are?
Correct. There's an opportunity to get to this. So what I'm going to do, I've picked out kind of 4 key sentences or paragraphs from the statement, which are, of that ilk, and we can drill into it and give our own thoughts on it. Just first of all, though, before I do so, where are you at on the timing? Saturday night, everyone's doing what they're doing.
Well, I think I've made my position quite clear.
Correct.
Right, never really can. Did the barrel again.
It's a time in general which allows less scrutiny, whether it's from fans, individuals, or even journalists who would be around at that time to kind of catch it. There's a whole thing about how you bring it out at that time, so it's just too late for the earlies of the Sunday papers. All those things. And on that note, do they think we're stupid? As if you really believe in what you're saying.
That's it.
Come out and say it on Monday morning at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Statement, this is it. We stand by this, we feel confident in it. Sneaking it out on a Saturday night tells you their lack of belief in it as well.
Have they spent the full day on ChatGPT? That's my question. When is the best time to release a statement if we're under the cosh?
It would have spat out a better answer.
Can't you write the statement for me?
Yeah.
Please.
Take out the comments for me, please.
I don't like that bit. Can you change that up? Can you make it a bit more easier for everyone to read?
Yeah.
Because I don't think they'll understand where we're coming from here. It is an absolute bin fire of a statement.
Correct. And on that, let's get to it. The first bit I've highlighted, so I'm reading verbatim here, so let me know your thoughts. Our ability to progress transfers is not conditional on Champions League qualification. We recognise the importance of timing. Our clear goal is to secure new signings as early in each transfer window as possible so that players can integrate quickly and contribute from the outset of the season. Couple of responses, I'll come to you first. Of course, Champions League qualification has a bearing. If I'm a player and I can go to a Champions League club or a Europa one, I'm going Champions League. So, of course, that has a bearing.
They're saying budget-wise, it's not a bearing.
Right. The importance of timing has absolutely not been recognised. They've mentioned, we're well aware of timing. Well, why do you leave it up to the bumper last minute? And my last point, they talk about a clear goal of securing signings early. So why the last minute scramble? If you've got a clear goal of signings guys early, why was it such a panic last 48 hours?
Dolberg, 10 million early on the transfer window. We could have got him there and then, well before. No. Balquisha, tried to get him last year to get an injury. We knew of him, we knew his profile, we knew it would cost. First day of the transfer window, could have been in. So those 2 examples, and I could go and find out many more. 2 examples top of my head that completely fly in the face of that.
And also, near beat on, O'Connell, centre half, John McGinn, you go back. This is
Kilmarnock
This,
left back.
this is our MO. This is what we do.
Paddy says it's a 15-year thing. Somebody I know who is in the know, very genuinely in the know, says he's amazed it's taken this long to come crashing down.
But ultimately, it did. We need to. People forget 5 years ago, this club was scrambling, actually scrambling. We had young players having to play in really important games for the first 5 months. We, off the back of it, you were like, I need to see change. I need to see the move in the modern time. We get a lot of talk. We've got a lot of people that have been coming in, and we're thinking, is this the first step? No, because the minute something goes sour, these people get their jotters. It's an establishment. It needs to be ousted. Simple as that. They're not going to change their ways, and they're not willing to listen to what anyone has to say against them. You speak about them talking about getting players in from the very get-go. Our own manager released a statement two weeks ago saying we normally wait to the end of the window.
Aye, that's what Celtic do.
That's
what Celtic do. This is how we operate. So where is the clarity? Where is the transparency?
Where's the breeze between the two of them?
Exactly.
And who makes that decision?
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. We've.
It's dead simple.
I don't know if it was you, Paddy, or somebody I was speaking to recently. It's you can judge Celtic as a club by their words, or more realistically by their actions. Their actions showed them scrambling about at the last minute, but their words are no, we don't scramble about.
Yeah.
That's what their words are saying, but it's what you're doing.
Gaslighting.
Yeah.
William Ulsterman there. I will judge you by your actions and not your words.
But let me ask you a question based on all of that. Did Ange Postecoglou and certainly to an extent Brendan Rodgers buy the board 3, 4, 5 years of breathing space with their actions on the pitch, papering over the cracks for what's been going on behind the scenes?
Yes, and there was also 2 back-to-back windows of decisive action. So by doing that, you actually sustain the team for years to come because you buy good players who either maintain excellent levels of form, as some have, or the purchases are so good that you are able to reap money for them. So it created legitimacy in the model that everybody'd been talking about. You've seen big money coming back in, but what was happening every year as you passed that was there was more and more slippage between what came in and what went back out in genuine quality. I think for me, it's always been very apparent where we've needed to strengthen as a squad. You know, whether you're talking to your mates down the pub, on the bus, anecdotally at work, everybody's generally got pretty much the same opinion about the squad or had towards the end of last season as to where the action areas were. And we've not really done anything. Now, who decides that? That's what we don't know. The statement comes out, there's no name on it.
Yeah, so
Who's ultimately in charge of this? Because Michael Nicholson, legal and compliance is his background. That's his background. That means, you know, he'd be brilliant at reviewing contracts and knowing the ins and outs of legal loopholes, and that's fantastic. But ultimately, as a proper fit-for-purpose commercial function, is he going to understand the nuances of what's involved in transfers and things like that? No doubt he's learned different bits and bobs as he's went up the chain in Celtic over the years, but what's became really, really apparent is that there is no one of the suitable commerciality in the footballing side that can handle that area and that element. Partly I would accept some transfers have come down to luck, but not necessarily all. I think the model that we have in terms of selling is a good one. We're identifying a decent profile of player and developing them and selling them on. That's excellent. But what Ange did and what Rodgers did was, in spite of what conditions they were working under, they brought success on the pitch. Now, both of them have probably recognised very, very quickly of the glass ceiling that exists at Celtic of our own creation.
Correct.
We have created a glass ceiling for ourselves that invites opposition, whether that be Rangers, Hearts, because you need to mention Hearts, Aberdeen, Hibs, because they're being ambitious now. And Rangers, it's inviting them on. And all of those clubs now have a clear structure. They have a clear structure in place where they've modernised and they're now doing their homework on the signings that they're bringing in. Some will work, some won't. It's the nature of the beast. Celtic remain the same and it's kind of static. And all we ever want is to be progressive. That's all we ask for as a group of fans. And that's failed to happen for quite a long time now.
How frustrating is that we've created our own limit? You know, you could go anywhere with it, you know, with this, the fan base at Celtic have, the infrastructure, generally speaking, the funds that we now find ourselves with. I mean, it's going to sound cringier, but you should be shooting for the moon. And we're just going, now we're just going, nah, league titles and a wee bit of progress in Europe, that's fine. The moon seems awfully far away. Or the moon can be Champions League progression.
No progress in Europe.
We've created our own limit, Paddy, and how deflating is that as a fan?
Over the course, when it comes to that challenge of us trying to qualify for the Champions League and having to go through the qualifier stage, we're not really successful at it. It's not been great over the last 15 years that I'm putting this bracket onto. I'm going to the Times, obviously speaking about the Jota sale. Kieran Tierney, absolutely 25 million worth. I totally agree, and the fact we've got him back is still a brilliant signing. But what I'm meaning is that they generally have so many stabs at players coming in that when we end up sitting and holding on to a bloated squad, they're hoping out of that. I don't think that it's forward planning. They think we'll sell this player for 20, 25 million. They're hoping that it comes good. They're hoping that they will reap the benefits of that, and it looks good on paper because we can look at the profit margins that we're making. It's all good when you're selling players. We're not buying players, and that's why everything's looking rosy on that side. But when it comes to also the luck side of things that I'm talking about, 3 years direct qualification into the Champions League. Now, did Celtic lay a glove in Europe, albeit playing in harder, more difficult games? I'm not taking away that level. But did we have those big games? Did we have any European runs in that time? No, we didn't. So again, it's sitting on that. Well, we'll take that. They've went on their European run 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
We're in the benefit here because we're still doing it domestically, right? Now, that's a small tick box for Celtic. That's what it should be. But they're happy with that. It's a status quo and they don't want to change it.
Yeah, and just on the European progression stuff, I had a really interesting chat just around about this time last week with Gavin from Scotland's Coefficient. Most folk are aware of his profile on Twitter. Real intelligent guy. And he's the real knowledge on all things European football and Scottish football in general. And he came into paint. It was a great conversation, but a pretty grim picture of what European progression is going to look like. We've looked at it from a Celtic point of view, but just for Scottish football in general. And we have slipped so dramatically. But based on some of our poor performance, there's no getting away from that it's going to be challenging next year to get into Champions League if we're lucky enough to win the league, and there's no guarantees on that right now. Beyond next year, it's going to be ridiculous. You're back to 3 qualifiers. The second team in Scotland could be playing for not Europa League, Conference League.
Yeah.
It's a real slippy slope, and it's worth checking out. It's on our Patreon just now, patreon.com/Celtic Exchange for the full episode with Gavin. Let me get to the next part of the statement. Quote unquote again, transfer activity attracts enormous attention and speculation, particularly across social media, and the mainstream media has commoditised the transfer window in its relentless search for content. Breaking news. The news. You know, the media did it and ran away type response.
So before I come on to tonight's show with you guys, I had the opportunity to speak to the guys at the Go Football Show, and Paul Cooney read the same line out,
right, and
said, where is that really coming from? And it was I was on with Stephen McGinn and Charlie Mulgrew, and the two of them were like, is that not the media's job to bring these statements out? Now,
tell stories.
Hurtful or like not a true reflection of what's going on. Again, like I don't mind how Celtic have acted in terms of players that have come in. I think over the last 5 years we have really seen that. Oh, we're like with him. Oh, he's signed.
I think everyone approves of that.
I'm okay with that, absolutely. Keep people guessing. And I think us as fans, it's a really nice surprise. But when you generally have nothing, when you're asking your manager and your manager can't even say maybe 1 or 2 coming in, when there is nothing, and I'm like, you think about the height of summer, we done the shows at the beginning of July and we're talking about, it's all right now, it's okay now.
2 out of 10 days.
Aye, back in the old
panic hours.
I'd bite your hand off for 2 out of 10 stress level.
Big time, man. But when you look at how Rodgers ended up having to be the fall guy in those comments, and no, there's no one.
But here's the other side of that. So yeah, we all know, and we've known our whole lives, and everyone knows that the media can be malicious at times, particularly when it comes to transfer headlines. You know, in a sporting sense, a source said, and they'll make up all sorts of stuff. That's not new. But to push it back on the media for our failings. So is it the media's fault that we couldn't secure Kasper Dolberg? Is it the media's fault that Go Ahead Eagles wanted 6 million for Jacob Broom? We said, I hear you're 6, I'll give you 2 in a bit.
Aye.
All of those things. So how can you possibly push anything of that nature back to the media. It's more deflection. What's the other word you use? Obfuscation.
Obfuscation.
Jeez, oh,
Good
what
word.
words like that, buddy?
Good word.
uh,
That'll get printed in the paper.
I mean,
Don't the Celtic view.
that's just another cheap excuse, isn't it?
Yeah, and again, I think it's really insulting to your intelligence.
Yeah.
Like, you can't work out for yourself where the issue lies here, so we'll just feed you a load of absolute nonsense and hope that you buy it. No,
But
You know,
also see when you
own it.
create a void, right? So it's not just like the media, it's not this as well. You know, we're in here doing shows all through the summer and Celtic are telling you absolutely nothing. So when you get a snip of something, maybe we talk about it, you know, without getting into any great detail, but the papers then take it and try and make stories out because that's their job.
Mm-hmm.
But it's because you create this void and they can say, oh, but we don't want to discuss, negotiate in public. So no one's asking for that. That's just madness, right?
Let me get to that, but we'll finish off, but that's where I'm next.
No, no, you go then. Yeah.
Okay, so on that note, successful transfers can only be negotiated privately. It would be impossible to secure players if every stage was conducted in public. From time to time, other parties may also seek to create pressure by leaking information to the media. The club's position is clear. Transfer business will remain confidential until agreements are concluded and announced by the club. And as you say, no one's asking to see under the bonnet.
But
Just do your job.
But you can go to your, Steve McGowan or whoever your friendly journalist and say, a Celtic source says that's not true. And that's all.
Exactly.
Just shut it down.
And a journalist wouldn't be doing their job if they didn't go ahead and say, how come you couldn't get that over the line?
Celtic say it's not true.
What does it say, though, about that relationship that Steve McGowan did the article that he's done? So
He's out the 10, isn't he?
you know, you would have assumed that he was one of the go-to. He's always regarded as somebody that's, in the know or has a relationship with the board where maybe some stories would pass his way. For him to go and be so, so direct and
Hard to deny.
obviously he's doing his job as a journalist. I'm not denying that, and again, his integrity around that piece naturally will come first. But for him to, he himself is probably just as frustrated as us with the fact that he's went and released that in the way that he's done, because no more can. I think the thing that he tweeted on deadline day was Celtic's chickens have come home to roost.
Yeah.
And he's absolutely bang on.
And I wonder if there's, speculation here, I'm sorry if I'm upsetting anyone. I wonder if there's even been an element of Celtic trying to push that Rodgers narrative with McGowan on Friday night, and I'm saying no, absolutely no chance.
I was surprised that Roger Hanna, not necessarily a Celtic friendly journalist, but long in the game.
Aye.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
He's okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
But long in the game to feed that out, which is clearly propaganda. But
that's how the game works.
Sells print.
But that's what I'm saying. The media game isn't new.
Yeah,
and they've just played it themselves.
To actually
badly.
To actually reference the media at all is just, do you know what? There's a million things you could blame, and you might go, well, there's something that can't blame the media for doing what the media do.
No more overall thing with the others. I know we've got more to come, but that leads me to 800 grand a year, and you're wishing it was easier instead of wishing you were better.
Oh.
That is wild.
That's
800 grand a year, and you're saying that's right hard, isn't it?
I was going to ask a question about, is this where we should hear from the so far invisible Paul Tisdale? His job is head of football operations. If this all doesn't fall bang in that, then what does? And he came in pretty much under the radar. There was a bit on the website. Surely you should hear from him or someone. Now, you can agree or disagree with how this has been done, but Rangers come out, was it Kevin Thelwell? Come out, they've spent money, but they're still taking flack, particularly for the appointment of Russell Martin. He came out, to use your term there, he came out and owned it. He said, this is what we've done. We're sticking by him. I believe he's a talent. And that might or might not prove to be the case, but they're standing by and explaining their decisions, explaining how they operated, explaining how they signed. Tony Bloom has done similar from the Hearts' point of view.
He did a sit down.
Are you saying
like
you can't? And there was a suggestion also that it was kind of breaking news on Wednesday or Thursday. Michael Nicholson's doing a piece with Sky Sports. Then breaking news, no, he's not.
Gone.
It was it's bizarre. Surely someone must come out and speak. If it's not the chief exec, it has to be someone else in a senior position.
We have spent so many years sneering at Rangers, but regardless of
who's sneering now,
I know, but they have a clear structure. They have a clear structure, so someone will come out and be able to answer fans' questions. Sometimes they might not want to, but they do, because they've come out and said, right, look, this is the thinking behind it. What would we give for that right now?
Yeah, exactly that. It's not an easy thing to do, but it's your job.
There's parts of my job and parts of everyone's job that aren't necessarily easy, but you get paid for it and you do it, and that's that. That's as simple as that.
Why? On you go, sorry.
Well, just to answer your question about Tisdale, Tisdale sources talent. Rodgers says, I like him or I don't like him. And then the mystery executive goes and f***s it all up.
It's your job.
You know what I mean?
Do your job. It's your job.
That's the point I was going to make. Why does Tisdale have to say anything? And again, we look at...
He's head of football operations, in my opinion. That's
not his position it's not his position to comment. You know, and this point just now, if things were rosy and that transparency was there, is kind of what we're kind of hearing a wee bit. I'm not saying Rangers are good at that because they've had mess ups over the last few years. People they've brought in. But there's always been a comment after, like, do you know what? It's not worked out the way we expected. So we're moving and we're looking in a different direction. I think that, again, when you look at the history, we spoke last week about Hammond, we spoke about Contempt, we spoke about Mark Lawwell. It's always just been wish them all the best in a statement. That's it. Nothing else. No one coming out and explaining why. These guys are scapegoats.
And what you're going to do different next time?
It's more and more apparent they're the fall guys. And if I was to bet on it, Tisdale's next.
Nah.
Dom as well.
Tisdale's DD's man.
Is it?
That's a suggestion.
Apparently his friends with Rodgers though as well, like before.
Yeah, Rodgers was DD's man until recently.
Let's move on. The last kind of main section, as I say, there's plenty of other things to cover, but I do want to focus on this last bit of the statement. It says the club's model is not optional. It is now essential as a consequence.
And now for lies.
It's now essential as a consequence of the UEFA sustainability regulations with which the club must comply. And then there's a wee bit of chat in between, and it finishes off with, in short, throwing money at transfers and contracts is not a sustainable route to success, as many other clubs have found to their detriment, or to the detriment of their supporters. So it's a obligatory cheap dig at Rangers, right? Pathetic. Right? But the other part, Matt, and you touched on it earlier on, the whole FSR thing. Now, we're not experts on it. I don't think any of you lads are. I'm certainly not. But you just do a wee bit of basic digging into it, and I think it dictates that you can spend up to a maximum of 70% of your revenues on transfer fees, wages and agents. Celtic's revenues for financial year 2023-24 was 124.6 million. 70% of that is 87.2 million. There is wiggle room for Celtic to play with and then some. But this is you're a wee bit stupid. Keep paying your season ticket, but just eat all this for us, could you? And that's what it's looking like.
That felt personal. To use a Super Hands quote for Peep Show, secret ingredient is lies. They lie, they subvert the information to suit their own purposes. But that to me was just, oh man, I was like, come on, guys, you don't really think we're that stupid, do you?
Flat in the face.
Sunday morning, it was all the...
Really
Celtic has a
think we're that stupid.
Celtic has a raft of very intelligent, financially intelligent, numerically intelligent fans, very active on socials and whatever else. By Saturday morning, they were like, bang, 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 there's the numbers. Just shot it straight down.
Yeah.
It didn't last the morning, do you know? But how could you write that and think,
that's okay?
Get away with that.
Aye, that's okay.
How out of touch again?
It's just that. It's just they treat you like idiots. And I mean, for me, what backs this up is the conduct we've mentioned on other transfers, the amount of players we've missed out on if stories are to be believed. But I go back to it again. You get less for your season ticket.
Yeah.
You get less games. There's more merchandise than ever.
Yeah,
there has ever been.
Above inflation.
They're squeezing and squeezing and squeezing in every way. And yet, the minute we rally back with quite rightful anger at how a transfer window's been handled, off the back of many other field transfer windows, that's what we get back. But, I mean, how much more disdain can you treat your own fans with? It's ridiculous.
And just that line, in short, throwing money at transfers and contracts is not a sustainable route to success.
Who's asking for that?
No one is asking Celtic to
spend
beyond
their
means.
But like, we're not stupid. We know that's how it works. We have never lived out with our means. We've never ever done it, and it's why we're in such a good position as a football club. But there is a point where what we are saying is that it can't just be about being that little bit more than what Rangers are doing. It has to be a bigger project, and there's just no forward thinking. Yeah. That's the scary bit. I think, see, on that comment as well, that is the one for me where you see obviously what we put our names to with the joint statement the other day with the supporters clubs with the
put on it.
I did. The fan groups and with fan media. You're then waiting in 3 associations hoping that they see sense, because obviously there's a lot of close contact with the associations and the board, maybe more so than others. The fact that all 3 of them have come out and said, this was cold. It was actually very, very cold. There was no heartfelt meaning behind it at all. It was a chat GPT statement. And how do you think they can get away with it? It's insane.
But also, you see, even if you just strip it down to the absolute basics, in the days prior to the window closing, we sold our striker
So you were creating
for
headroom.
£7 million.
Yeah.
And you should have been selling Daizen Maeda, by the way, but we'll get to him.
And Yang for 3.
Yeah.
So
you were making room.
You have created the room
Yeah.
to spend that. This isn't fans shouting and screaming
Because it's just
additional money.
Aye.
We're in such a healthy position in the sense of
Spend
what they
the
were
money
trying
that
to
you have brought in.
Even if we didn't sell those players, we still had
Yeah. As
bags of room.
I said,
Wild.
to round up
Wild.
on that, no one's wanting Celtic to spend every single penny they've got. They just want them to be the best they can within the resources we've got.
Progressive.
And exactly. And that's not happening.
Even just to see the statement was one of corporate tone, and then they throw in a line about throwing money about. Get consistent.
Read
Do you
the
know what I
room.
mean? Just write it one way or the other. Don't try and be all. Like, I'm a fan now. I can say things like this, and I can try and slag off Rangers. Yeah, exactly, man.
That's when we would release
Yes.
our intake for the year. We would do our AGM. We would let the people know the finances and everything's rosy, unlike across the road.
Yeah.
Aye,
Hit
all
that with
stuff.
that. That's
Aye.
see that
Even
there.
then,
We're not looking for
I mean,
that. Aye, even then, exactly.
Maybe the robot ran out of batteries and had to do a wee bit at the end themselves.
Right.
To subscribe.
Let's move on. We'll get to the fallout in just a second in terms of the responses in the various kind of supporters club bodies. I had mentioned there's a couple of episodes that I think folks will enjoy. In the meantime, the episode with Gavin, absolutely, from Scotland's Coefficient.
Very
I
good.
sat towards the end of the week with Matt McGlone. Matt McGlone was a huge part of Celts for Change back in 1994. At a time when fans were instigating for change for very different reasons. You know, the club were in financial turmoil. But at the end of the day, fans were ignored back then. They're being ignored now. Then that's the similarities, and that's something that Matt and I touch on. So you can get that episode right now on our Patreon. The third episode we done last week was with Maura McColgan. Maura was one of those select few lucky fans now that was in Lisbon. Maura was there back in 1967 with her dad.
Wow.
A fella called Dan McColgan, who himself played for Celtic at the time. It's a brilliant story. So that's part of our new I Was There series. You'll get all of that at patreon.com/Celtic Exchange. So, as we know, the statement came out 8:42 on Saturday night, and since then the responses have been following. Fans individually, absolutely, irate. Nobody that any of us know, I think, thinks this is all good, this is okay. We ourselves have made our feelings known, and the various other supporters' bodies have done the same. So, on Sunday at 5 o'clock, the Celtic Supporters Association came out with their vote of no confidence in the Celtic board. That's followed around about 8 o'clock on Sunday by a combined statement from Boys Celtic, Green Brigade, North Curve and the Celtic Trust. No confidence from them. And finally, this morning, Monday morning at 10 o'clock, the affiliation of registered Celtic supporters clubs come out with their vote. And I thought their statement was good and really strong, and I'm going to read it out. So they said, the affiliation of registered Celtic supporters clubs wishes to express its deep disappointment with the statement issued by Celtic FC on 6 September. The statement was cold, clinical and devoid of genuine emotion. It failed to engage with the concerns raised by our members, offering instead a sterile response steeped in corporate jargon and financial defensiveness. This tone not only dismisses the passion and intelligence, not you, of the Celtic support, but also signals a worrying detachment from the values that have long defined our club. Celtic Football Club was built on foundations of inclusion, integrity and solidarity. The current direction, as reflected in the club's statement and recent actions, risks eroding those very principles. Our members feel unheard, and the lack of meaningful engagement undermines the trust that should exist between the club and its supporters. Following extensive consultation, the affiliation has now held a formal vote of no confidence in the club's leadership. The result was clear and unanimous. Our supporters clubs do not support the current board's approach or its handling of recent events. The affiliation remains committed to constructive engagement, but we will not stand by while our concerns are dismissed or diluted. The relationship between club and supporters must be more than transactional. It must be rooted in shared purpose, mutual respect, and the values that define Celtic's identity. I know I've had a wee laugh there, Miff, but that is a strong and really bang on the money statement.
Spot on, and the last part, the most pertinent for me, around the relationship being transactional. That's all it is. And until the board have a different focus or a different view or a different sentiment towards the fans, nothing's going to change. If anything, the sentiment of the fans towards the board is only going to get more and more toxic.
There's a further statement that's come out from the Association of Irish Celtic Supporters Clubs. It's not a full vote of no confidence, but it's very strong, and it condemns Celtic's statement as patronising, amongst other things. I would expect they wouldn't be far behind in bringing their vote, but we'll need to wait and see. James, question for you, just from a corporate point of view, generally speaking, what does a vote of no confidence mean in reality for anybody?
Well, it depends who it comes from and in what context. And in this context that you're talking about means nothing. It's symbolic, it's just saying we don't trust you, we don't like you, whatever it may be. And they're like, well, you don't have any say here, we've got the shares, beat it. That's what it could mean. But this is a groundswell now. There's, like I said earlier on, there's too much unity, and that's caught them off guard. I think the move to the CSA was a Snyder. I think they were trying to get them on board, bring them around. What's galling, you touched on earlier on, is that meeting is finished, and you can see the sentiment from all the people that are at that meeting was one of like, this is bad. And Celtic finished that meeting going, I went well.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And they've had the temerity to then put a statement out thinking, well, we've got them on board, so we can put a statement out. They'll back us up Sunday and we'll be all sorted. By Sunday night, their vote of no confidence is out. So the actual vote of no confidence on its own doesn't mean anything in a corporate sense, but it's an accumulation, and it will keep getting added to and added to as we're seeing every day now.
And it's also quite embarrassing, though. In the reality, it'll play out in terms of what happens in the weeks and months ahead. But it is embarrassing to have that unanimous groundswell of opinion. But you rightly say there, the CSA and the affiliation, they'll have come away from that meeting and went, that was a mess. And then they'll have seen the statement on Saturday night and went, hold on, that is not the meeting we were in.
I'm surprised they never tried to put in the CSA says it was all right, I know. I'm surprised they never did something.
They'd be cool.
But listen, we've done a lot of, I don't know what I say moaning, but we've assessed the situation, let's put it that way, and there's a lot of feeling in this room and every Celtic room at this moment in time, I would argue. But here's a question then. We can talk about it, we can get it about it, or we can try and make moves to make things happen. But what can be done? What's the reality? I'll tell you where we're at right now. We've been in pretty close contact with North Curve and Green Brigade, who at the moment, what they're trying to do is facilitate discussions. They're not saying this is our message, get on board or not. They've been very upfront about saying, we know that at times we divide opinion, but on this occasion we're trying to bring fan groups together, people with a voice. We've been invited to a meeting on Wednesday night that we'll go and attend, and we'll give our thoughts and opinions there. They put out a fan survey, so again, they facilitated a fan survey which has been doing the rounds today. We shared it on Patreon, and it's an opportunity for fans to give their thoughts as to what confidence they have or not in the board at this moment in time, and what course of action they might get behind, because not everyone's up for boycotting, for example, or giving up the Europa League tickets. But there are some suggestions along those lines. Or would you maybe sit in a silent protest for 10 minutes at Celtic Park? Would you cancel your home cup ticket scheme? And so on and so forth. Where are you at, Matt? What do you think the fans can do, should do, will do? What's your general take on that?
I'm very conflicted. I don't think there has ever been a team more in need of support than this one, because they themselves have been failed by the board. The captain himself was out screaming for reinforcements, saying the team needs help. Some reinforcements have come in, but not enough. So the fans will need to drag the team through if we want to, win the league, progress in Europe, all those things. But whether you win the league or not, whether you progress in Europe or not, there is, what's became apparent is there's now a bigger picture to all this. A bigger picture which has sat conveniently in the background for all concerned, probably, because we were winning. Now, even just winning isn't enough if you feel like a relationship that you're in isn't working. And there is now tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of Celtic fans for whom the relationship isn't working because of how they're being spoken to by the board, or spoken at by the board. And it comes off the back of a part of football that should be enjoyed. Fresh players coming in, the model in action, players going out, players coming in, a freshness to the squad, being linked with players, and all the things that the summer can bring. There was absolutely none of that, and we were watching things unfold going, they're not going, are they? but for they have.
They can.
They have. Then some.
They have. So for me, again, having the boys is quite difficult, because I try to keep them away for the politics side of it. I try to keep it as pure as possible. Celtic's your team, you go and support your team. To then deviate for that stance can look a bit odd. So I've not made any personal decisions on what I'm going to do or not do on the Europa League side of things, because I see I've maybe got a responsibility to them to still enjoy their football for what it is. But that said, it's a personal decision.
Yeah.
I think that this team really needs the support, but the tipping point has arrived. So I blame absolutely no one if they have to make any sort of protest, whatever that might be, because we've just had enough. And if there was even any doubt about that, just go and read that statement. Go and read that statement, and if you can honestly read that statement off the back of everything that's happened, and think that is an appropriate way for Celtic's board to speak to their fans, then nah, not for me.
If there's any hope on change from in the coming days or weeks, I think I totally agree with you on that, Miff, is that we can't be against each other on that. I think the supporters need to come together. There has to be respect in people's views and people's stance.
And put things aside. Just get single focused.
Absolutely, absolutely. But if people are wanting to still go and back the team in the Europa League, then that's absolutely fine in my eyes. There has to be that respect in both ways. 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think there's two things on that, right? So those who are up for boycotts.
This guy.
he's the boycott guy. He's been doing it for years.
I love a boycott.
Trailblazer.
Love a boycott.
Trailblazer.
Then that should be respected. If you want to go to football, of course, that's essentially at the core of it. What we all want to do, especially if your kids going along.
Yeah.
Where I've got a slightly different opinion to that is when folk are acting against people boycotting and giving them a hard time and saying, "I just want to go." How dare you tell me? Nobody's telling anyone what to do. But to then be getting on it, the people who've chosen to boycott because they're not going into Parkhead or not getting in on time or whatever it may be, for those people, I would say if there wasn't boycotts among Celtic fans, you wouldn't have a club to support.
Correct.
So do not, feel obliged to boycott, but don't get in the way at the same time.
Yeah, and I've not had any indication, I've not read or heard anything
about that
would indicate that to be the case. Because I think what we've agreed early on in the piece here, there is unity that you don't always see at any football club, and Celtic's such a huge fan base and a broad church and all those things that there will always be differences of opinions, and that will remain, and that's part of the joy of football. But it is important to put those small-ish differences to the side for now towards the common goal.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my next question. What is the goal? What is it we're looking to achieve here? Is it the removal of chief execs, CFOs, Dermot Desmond? What's the target?
You can worry about the machinations of it and what actually comes together to make it work. But see, as long as Celtic are a modern, progressive, forward-facing operation, nobody really is going to get into the nitty-gritty of who owns it, who runs it, anything like that. It's only when that's not happened you have to get into the back of it. And if you get into the back of it and you find that part of the problem is because you get an interfering minority owner who has majority say, then that's when ownership gets looked at. So Desmond could fix this by first and foremost stepping back, not that he's present, but in terms of you shouldn't be speaking to Rodgers, you shouldn't be speaking to anyone. Just set the plan in place, let the board and the exec team run the company and just be the shareholder that you are. If you want more than that, then you're going to get further agitation from fans to change you and to encourage people to buy. In terms of direct actions, David Lowe, the atomisation of small shareholders who don't have a say. It's 20% of the shareholder is in small holdings across the world. David Lowe did this job for Ferguson McCann to allow us to put out the old board in '94, and he's been on that run again. So that's a first action.
You mentioned David Lowe. I think David stepped back from the trust, and I think the fella Duncan Smiley is going to step in there. So there's been changes.
He's out as well.
You're in it.
Did a meeting
and Smiley might be looking at something on the
own. I think so. Duncan Smiley went to the trust meeting last week, and for whatever reason, it didn't quite work out, and they're going in a different direction. So I don't really know what's going on in and out of the trust.
We'll keep that to the side for now.
But kind of on the trust, I suppose and we had a friend of ours, Stephen, last night saying, encouraging people to buy up small shares. You're looking at years and years and years for that. It's a nice idea, it's a good initiative, but it's too long. The quicker move is David Lowe's thing. You get a 20% block there, and then you only need a wee bit more of other people interested, John Keane or whatever it may be, or John Keane's son, to bring them, and then you've got the majority say. You get Desmond and Lindsay Train working in, hand in hand that is the target, is to be above them in terms of the numbers so you can have the votes.
Yeah, so Dermot Desmond, the line that was used last week is 34% of shares, 100% of the say. That's where it's at. But he's got 34% and Lindsay Trainer got something like 20 odd of the
I
not.
think so, 19.
So you can't defeat that. 51% gets you that say. So I don't know in terms of corporate governance and share structures if there's any moves, David Law or otherwise, that can help with that. But you talk about, whether it's someone like Dermot stepping aside or whatever, the main focus is the club just doing the right things. So in this room, would you lads be happy if all existing personnel stay in place, if there's a bit of contrition, we got it wrong and all that stuff, and we see change, which we can't now see till January?
But it's also
Is
past
it
that.
past the point?
Oh,
It's
100%.
past.
They've buried themselves with that
Yeah.
statement.
Yeah.
So do you feel that heads have to roll?
Yeah.
People have to go.
That's it. It's, it was bad. And then the statement, and you go, I mean, that's just like nailing your own coffin, man. Just from the back, just nah.
Somebody was making the point that because people have already paid for their season tickets, the board won't care if people turn up or not. I completely disagree with that, because if you look out, imagine there's a half-empty stadium for any game, Rangers game or otherwise, and there's Sky TV cameras perhaps there, or the optics from just still photography from the game. It's not only that, and yes, the money has been banked for those season tickets, but it's the embarrassing factor. Again, I talk about the embarrassment, and sponsors see that.
That's sponsorship.
Sponsors say, hold on a
That's
minute,
a big
we're
target.
giving you tens, if not hundreds of millions throughout the
Nobody's
term of
buying
this
the jerseys.
contract. Not sure about this all of a sudden. If there was a boycott on merchandise, whatever, there are ways you can embarrass the club into action at this moment in time.
There is. What you need to kind of think about, and we need to box clever with, is that if there was change, what are the next regime coming into, and what powers do they have, and what's in the bank balance at that? I suppose I totally understand hitting it where it hurts is the purse. Absolutely. I also kind of have to think though, like we need to see this change. If you're talking about the reputation of the club and that global side of things, and how people perceive us, how the TV perceives us, how sponsors perceive us, they've also got to be accountable for how the negotiations have went this summer, and how other football clubs down the line will say we're not entering any negotiations with this board because they've taken the absolute piss out of us. I think the go-ahead Eagles, they could. And I think when you look at player agents, and a lot of the time in football this day and age, player agents are the ones that are coming to us and saying, I might have so-and-so for you. None of them will want to deal with Celtic.
No.
A lot of damage being done.
Somebody talking about
A lot of goodwill being lost.
Celtic moving. Ida said to him, "Don't go. It's a shambles."
You believe it.
Because you need to stand, right by your mate and say, "Look, I've been there. I wouldn't go."
The accountability part of it is passed because of the statement. But if there was any way back, they would need to hold their hands up, and they would need to say, "We need to get real. We need to get with modern times." I feel like I've been saying that for 15 years.
Yeah. We need to move on. Time is ticking. I do not want to pay you overtime. That's where we're at. Nobody wants that.
Don't pay me in.
There's a number of things to cover.
Celtic will end up signing.
As mentioned previously, we do a daily update, a podcast every morning, just a short update on all things Celtic on our Patreon. So patreon.com/Celtic Exchange. We'll keep you updated through this week, particularly after that meeting on Wednesday night. Got some football to talk about, kind of. So we've actually, amongst all that, signed a couple of players. Sebastian Tunetke, 5.2 million from Hammarby, and Kelechi Iheanacho. Give us your take on Iheanacho in fairly punchy terms, if you can.
So I think the first few weeks will decide how his tenure goes. Could actually work as a striker for us because he's got good individual skill, dare I say, maybe along the sort of Eddie lines for me. Wee bit of Eddie. So if he hits the ground running and gets a couple of early goals, I think he could really take off. The other side of it is that his record in recent years has been absolutely horrendous.
Yeah.
So it stands to reason we don't really know what we're getting, and we just need to wait and see.
But
listen, he's a talented boy, and we all want him to do well.
Of course.
We want him to hit the ground running. So,
And this is important that we don't take out our frustration on any of the new signings. It wasn't Adamida's fault in that January window. It's not these guys' fault just now. But just in terms of Iheanacho, CV-wise, 28-year-old forward, ex-Man City and Leicester, and he hit the heights with those two clubs. 59 caps for Nigeria, 15 goals, but he absolutely has struggled at Sevilla and Middlesbrough recently. Paddy, any take on Sebastian Tunetke? So just the lowdown on him. 23-year-old winger, left-sided winger. Despite the club saying he can play both sides, he's a left-sided winger. It's proven throughout his career. There's a heat map of him recently.
Ridiculous.
It's red hot down the left. It doesn't do the right.
Nothing in the right.
So that would be a change. He only joined Hammarby in February for around about £1 million. So he stayed there half a season and he's now jumped ship. And he's got only two caps for Tunisia. He was born in Norway, but to a father from Tunisia, so he's got 2 caps there. Are you excited by him, or is he similar to Iheanacho? You just don't know at this moment?
No, just don't know at this moment. I think obviously I'll wait to pass comment on him. To be honest, I seen someone had reached out to a journalist that kind of followed his career and was like, he's a subpar winger.
Subpar.
Aye, but the thinking on it as well, I think you would get the same kind of review with Nicholas Kuhn when we got him. And that's where our manager comes in and works hard and brings these players to the front. But the thing is a manager down tools?
Well, is he motivated enough?
Exactly.
That's the question.
Just interestingly, I think Brendan could go, right, to spite yous, just get the bit between his teeth and just finish in a blaze of glory.
Win the Europa League.
Give you I'll settle with the league. Not even any cup double. I'll settle with the league. I think Rodgers could go, well, I'm not going to go out meekly and just drift off into the sunset. Just take what he's got, shape him into what he can, and batter through this league and win it.
Miff will hate this, but I said it to you before we came on. He's the second most successful manager for this football club, and I just think we're maybe
of all time.
We're maybe for starting to forget that a wee bit. We need to remember that.
He could go out in a blaze of glory. The other big talking point we've not been able to spend much time on is Daizen Maeda. So on international duty with Japan, he revealed that effectively the club had reneged on an agreement to let him move on. I've heard other folks speaking, I think it was Hamish speaking on his video with Stevie from GigPod about the fact that I think they said to him, play the Rangers game, play the qualifier, we'll then let you go. But because Celtic are so inept at signing players and haven't found a replacement, what we're now doing, and we've seen the patterns in years past, is we're keeping an unhappy player, and that usually only ends up one way.
So what was Taneki if he wasn't a replacement then? Because we've got Balikwisha, Taneki and Daizen all sitting in the left wing.
Depends if you're calling him a striker or a winger.
Daizen's got to be centre forward.
Yeah. But what do you make of the fact, Miff, that you've now got you've clearly, like, whether he's unhappy or he'll down tools is another question. You've got a guy that doesn't want to be here. Mm-hmm. He wanted to make a move. He's not been allowed to make the move. You've also got Yang, who wanted to move to Birmingham. Adamida clearly wasn't happy. There might be others, CCV and Hitati.
I think with Maeda, I know that the other side of what he's got now is realising, right, I'm here.
World Cup.
Do I jeopardise that? Was Thomas in our group had said the same. He was like, he doesn't want to be here, absolutely. We've said it for the beginning of the season. He's just not looked interested at all. He's not alone. Yeah. I think getting the players back this week at Lennoxtown has got to be an opportunity to try and galvanise. And
show them the goal for the season is that.
Absolutely.
Let's get together.
Let's get one last hurrah at it. Yeah. What we need to do is really, really hit the ground running in January, because it doesn't matter if Rodgers is going or not. You cannot let a new manager come into what we did with Postecoglou.
And also, if we know Daizen wants away and that deal can be done in January, we can sort that out. We can be doing work in the background just now. And then, you know, that to motivate him, you're saying, look, you can go in January, just give us everything you've got to January. Yeah. That's cast iron. There's who's replacing you. We've already done the diligence work. There's who we're going to replace. Just go and say cheerio to the fans and score a few goals, catch you.
Just to tin lid the shambles it was a transfer window. So finally we get reinforcements in, 3 of them African nations.
Aye.
So that's what, mid-December to end of January.
So that's, you know, Iheanacho, Taneki, Balikwisha, so they could all be doing their international stuff.
Nice work, boys.
You talk about that Daizen Maeda situation. That would require proactive thinking by the club.
Yeah.
And I'm not being flippant. That has not been the case in recent times, so there's no guarantees. The last piece on that note is that Adamida moves on. He came, he saw, he done fairly well, had some big moments for Celtic, but I suppose it just wasn't working out. And I think you had said before all this kicked off, you would have taken about 6 million. You've got your 6 million, he gets his move.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's just, whether it's timing or that. I mean, Ida could well be a victim of the atmosphere that the board have brought into the club, you know, since Kyogo left. It was, let me finish, because when Kyogo left, he did to step up. I think my gut is it was the pressure of being that number one, right? But the moment Kyogo left is when the board instigated that culture of whatever, guys, you know, just let's roll with it. And maybe he just feeling, well, if this club isn't going forward, is it going backwards? Because that's certainly the atmosphere around the place, and it's obviously impacted on Rodgers. So maybe he's a victim of that, because there is zero doubt in my mind that he's a talented lad. You know, we saw it, but it was the emotional side of things or the mental side of things I was delighted for him to get his goal last night for Ireland, and in the last minute as well, came off screaming into the crowd and stuff. So just that's football sometimes, the way it goes. But good luck to him.
Didn't want to be the man. Didn't want to be the man, and we needed the man. So
Yeah.
simple as that.
We've spoke about it, guys. It's a heavy jersey for any player, and if you've got it, you've got it. If you don't, you don't. I listened to Super Scoreboard a couple of nights ago, and listen, I thought it's very easy to say, the fans were too critical of him, the fans were too harsh on him. No, you've either you've got it or you don't at Celtic.
You don't get criticised if you're due at Celtic.
Exactly.
Yeah. So he heads off to Swansea, but good luck to Adam Ida.
Aye, good luck.
Yeah.
I'll come to you lads now. It's been a busy show, lots going on there, and I'm keen for your final thoughts, but you can't dismiss the fact that Celtic play football this weekend as well. It's that's what we're here for at the end of the day. Kilmarnock at Rugby Park. A couple of us might be getting down to it, all going well. So Sunday, 3 o'clock kickoff. James, I'll come to you first. What does that look like? How must the players be feeling? Because they catch all this news as well. And your own final comments for the week.
I think that the fans who are a bit more on the streets and organised than us in terms of board protests and stuff like that, good luck to them, and we'll be right behind them. I think they'll know how to find that balance between making sure the board know exactly how you feel and let the players know exactly how you feel about them as well. It'll be full support for those on the park and absolute denigration for those off it. So yeah, that's the way it'll be, and that's the way it'll be until there's change.
Okay, Paddy?
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think there's been a few fingers pointing towards some of the performances this season. Should we have got a song out that team to go and win the games against Kyrat and win the game against Rangers? I think it's clear to see that there's a lot of unhappy people in that squad that were waiting to find out what their future would hold. And we can rhyme off Ida, Yang, Maeda. Probably I wouldn't be surprised if Carter Vickers is on that list as well. They're now in a sense all kind of stuck there. So go and earn your move. Go and, like you say, Miff, go and give it that 6 months and see what you can do in January. We'll thank you for everything that you've done. I do think that a few of the players that are going to be part of our living are at the end of their journey with us, and I don't want it to kind of go. I think we've seen that with the likes of Edward, although I still think Edward put in a hell of a shift in that final last season and still scored the goals before he moved at the end of the transfer window in his final season. I think it's a case of galvanising everyone, and the one manager I think can do it if he's up for it is Rodgers on that. So you want to prove a point, and as I say, you want to leave his held head high.
Yeah, and you wouldn't want these players,
Right with that.
These players have been so good for Celtic. Maeda's, CCVs, Hitatis. Otherwise, you wouldn't want them going out under a cloud.
No,
they've been so good for us, and
Helped.
I think Brendan Rodgers is quite big on setting short-term targets, and actually the initial target should be is 4 months to get you through to January. The rest of September, October, November, December.
Get us a 7 to 10 point lead.
We're on a good start, by the way.
Yeah, we're
Forget that.
decent.
We are.
So give your all, and then if some of you have to move on in January, Dyson and otherwise, Yang perhaps, then so be it. But give your absolute everything, because you're locked in from now to then whether you like it or not, and then we can move on. Miff, as always, final word to you.
Yeah, well, I think it's just to back up what you've just said there, Tino. The window's shut now. The squad's a squad. Those players are our players. Some may not be delighted at the fact that they're still there, but anybody that was going to go would have left with our best wishes. They've been good servants to Celtic over the years. However, the fact that they're still here, it's a World Cup year, all those things, it might be that you just need to dig in for one last tranche of games and get us through to January, to then we can make up for the horrendous window that we've had. One thing is for sure, we don't support Celtic for political or internal struggles. We support it so that we can go to the game with our friends, family, have a drink, cup of tea, eat a pie, support the team. Don't think that's necessarily going to change. I think the action that's going to be taken will be very deliberately aimed at the board. I go back to my point around this team more than any needing the support of the fans. How that looks in the Europa League might be slightly different, but I think for domestically anyway, I think the fans are going to be absolutely right behind them. And let's not forget that we have 3 new players in there. I know Akwisha's already made his debut, but probably not ideal circumstances to be getting thrown in at Ibrox when he's barely had any training or stuff like that. So, coming in, working with the squad, seeing how Iheanacho's going to land, all those things. You go back, if he scores a winner against Kilmarnock, you know, the feeling is then got to be back with the connection between the players and the fans, and that is the most important connection. It's then up to the board, what action are they going to take?
Yeah, but really interesting times ahead, and thanks to all three of you for your honest and open comments tonight on what's a tricky time for Celtic. So that's all from this latest episode of Celtic Exchange Weekly during what is an undoubted period of high tension for the club. We'll do our very best to keep you up to date on all things Celtic throughout this week, and the best place for that is our Patreon, where we host a daily podcast every midweek morning, as well as a members only chat space where you can speak to fellow fans 24/7. You can check it all out at patreon.com/Celtic Exchange. But in the meantime, as best as you can, have a brilliant week. We'll see you all again soon for the next one.